Today we're going to continue on graphing and solving inequalities. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take notes on this. So right now, open your journal, get a new page, and go ahead and write down the topic and write down the essential question. Again, the essential question is, can I solve and graph inequalities? So as we do notes, I want to go ahead and make sure that we write down the outline. Letter A. Letter A is going to be solving and graphing inequalities using multiple steps. So more than one step. So we're going to start with number one. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and solve this. And in doing so, remember, we're going to treat the inequality symbol just like an equal sign. So don't let it trick you. And if you want, you can go ahead and just write an equal sign for right now and then change it back to the inequality. But I prefer you really just to leave the inequality symbol as it is. And then just, again, you can add, multiply, or divide across the inequality sign just like it would be an equal sign. And the goal here remains the same as chapter 1. So really, we're not doing anything new. We're still trying to do the same thing. We're trying to isolate the variable. So if we look at the variable is n. So we look at what's happening to n and how can we get n on one side of the inequality. So if we look at one side, we can look here. We have the n's on this side and we have a 3 over here. So notice that we can have notice we have two like terms. If we have two like terms, we can combine those. We combine the negative 5n plus the 2n, we get left over the minus 3n. We didn't change anything over here, so the 3 stays the same. And then all we do is we bring down the inequality symbol. So we're one more step closer to solving for the variable. So we look at what's happening to n. And when I look at what's happening to n, you look at this. When they're next to each other, that means multiplication. So we're multiplying by a negative 3. So what's the inverse of multiplying by a negative 3? It's called division, right? So the inverse is division. Just like an equal sign, what you do to one side of the inequality, you must do to the other side of the inequality. So if we divide both sides by negative 3, this cancels, that cancels. We divided by a negative 3. So negative by a negative is positive. So we bring down the n. 3 divided by negative 3, that's going to be a negative 1. Okay. Now we got to bring down the inequality symbol. However, note that we did multiply or divide by a negative. In this case, we divided by a negative. And so when you divide by a negative, you flip the symbol. So again, whenever you multiply or divide by a negative, you flip the inequality symbol. So it goes from facing the right-hand side to facing the left-hand side. That's how we solve that. So that's called solving in the inequality. And again, we do that by combining like terms if you can, and then doing the inverse to get n by itself. Now we're not done yet, we got to go ahead and graph. So now we're going to say, we're going to find negative 1, and now we're going to say, well, is it an open and closed circle? Well, because we have a greater than symbol, we're going to say it's going to be an open circle. The statement reads n is less than negative 1. So we ask ourselves, which way, right, are my values less than negative 1? And so my values are less than negative 1 when we go this direction. Okay, let's do another one. So I'm going to call this number 1. I'm going to call this number 2. This one's a little more complex. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try to solve for the variable. When trying to solve for the variable, you look to the left side or the right side of my inequality symbol and see if we can combine like terms. And right now we see that we can't combine the 3x with the 4 because they're not like terms. So we can't combine anything on this side. Over here we have 15 plus x. Again, they're different terms, and so we can't combine them. So then the next step is, well, I want to move all my variables on one side and all my constants, all my numbers on the other side. So what I'm going to do here is be careful which way you move. You want to end up with positive variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to move this guy first, because if I add both sides, again, I'm going to do the inverse. If I add to one side, I must add to this other side. And if I do that, I end up with positive variables, and that's what I want in the end. I want a positive variable. So my 3x's here, positive, they cancel, and then I bring everything else down. Okay, I bring down x plus 3x, x plus 3x, that's going to be 4x. Okay, bring everything else down. I bring down what's left over here. My 4 is left over here. I bring down my inequality. I bring down my 15. Okay. Now what's left? Now what do I do? Let's not forget this plus sign here. So then again, I want to get x by itself. So again, I can't combine these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the 15 over here, because I want to get x by itself eventually. So what I do is, what's the inverse of positive 15? It's minus 15. Minus 15. So then what happens here is we cancel those. We get positive 4, minus 15. That gives us minus 11. Bring down the what's left over. Positive 4x. Again, because it's positive, we don't have to have a positive there. It's going to be positive 4x. So 4x is going to be less than or equal to negative 11. Again, what do we do with our 4? Again, we're multiplying by 4. What's the inverse of multiplying by 4? It's dividing. Four divided by 4 is just 1. So we get left with x. We didn't multiply or divide by a negative, so the symbol is still the same. The inequality symbol is still the same. And you can just leave negative 11 over 4 in improper fraction form. And we're going to do that for right now. We're going to say that's going to be negative 11 divided by 4. And so my answer is x is less than or equal to 11, negative 11 over 4. So the next step to do is we're going to have to go and graph. So you make a graph. And we say, well, what's negative 11 over 4 in terms of maybe a fraction, right? Or a decimal. So we can say that 4 goes into 11 2 times with how many left over? 2 times with 3/4. Okay? So 2 3/4. Now you can convert 2 3/4 into decimal using the calculator. That's going to be 2.75. And again, this is going to be negative. So over here we have negative 3. Over here we have negative 2. And so the idea now is looking at the symbol, do we have an open or closed circle? So we have a closed circle. So this says x is less than. Okay, x is less than. Where are my values less than? To the left or to the right? And we're going to say it's going to be, there we go.